This is your host, Town Manager John Potter, broadcasting from the BCTV studios in Brattleboro, Vermont. We're getting back in the swing of things here on the Town Matters podcast after taking several months off to really focus efforts on developing the fiscal year 27 budget. The Select Board held multiple meetings in December and January and ultimately passed a budget for fiscal year 27 that we learned will be considered during an open town meeting in April as opposed to the traditional representative town meeting that would have been held in March. This was a result of an article on the ballot on March 3rd, which rescinded the representative town meeting, and now we've gone to this different form of government, and stay tuned to learn more about that and how that all plays out. So we're trying to get our podcast back on track, and we'll be aiming to be doing them on a biweekly basis again, starting with this one. So today I'll give you an update on the Select Board's meeting that was held on Tuesday, March 10th, and then I'll review the agenda for their next regular meeting, which will be on Tuesday, March 24th. So looking back to the meeting that the board just held on March 10th, there were 7 items on the consent agenda, which was approved, and on it, they agreed that they would not be having any further conversations about Smoke and Munch's tobacco license. They approved a limited event permit for Winston Prouty's bingo fundraiser. They approved a first-class liquor license and outdoor consumption permit for the Royal Diner, and they ratified 2 expenditures for road salt in the amount of $12,612 for Adams Trucking and $10,795 for Barrett Trucking. They granted a 1-year extension on farm tax stabilization agreements for several properties, including Fairwinds Farm, Wild Carrot Farm, Robb Farm, Thurber Farm, Hamilton Farm, and Earthbridge Community Land Trust. They approved a $1,082,134 contract to GPI Construction for exterior excavation and construction of public seating areas and improved ADA access at Brooks Memorial Library. And finally, on the consent, they approved a contract for $18,500 for seasonal cemetery maintenance to Team Awesome Property Services. Then on the March 10th meeting, under regular business, the board took up the matter of the annual town meeting warning, which needed to be done within the 30 to 40 day window before April 11th, which is the date of the town meeting. And there was a fair amount of discussion about the warning and what articles should be on it and how they should be worded. And they discussed in particular the possibility of several articles regarding Human Services Committee, regarding appointments. Also, there was discussion about articles regarding a replacement for the RTM Finance Committee, which would be called a Budget Advisory Committee. And they also discussed articles regarding Australian ballot and decided to remove those articles. And they finally had a discussion about the logistics and other items regarding the meeting itself. But there was several motions and amendments to those to approve the warning, which they finally passed by a vote of 5-0. The next discussion that the board held on March 10th was about dependent care stipends for open town meeting. And in the past, staff had always made stipends available to representative town meeting members to take care of dependents during their attendance at the meeting. We brought forward the question of whether the board wanted to do that for open town meeting, which has much less limited membership, of course, because any registered voter can attend the open town meeting. The board talked about this and heard comments from the public, and after several motions that they considered regarding things like capping the overall amount provided for dependent care or other, criteria around offering stipends, things like that, eventually through conversation decided to withdraw all the motions regarding approving a dependent care stipend. And ultimately there was a motion to remove the dependent care stipend and not provide it for town meeting this year, and that passed by a vote of 5-0. The following item on March 10th was making appointments to a Human Services Committee. This was done because in the vote on March 3rd, the representative town meeting was rescinded, and that made the representative town meeting's Human Services Committee no longer an entity. So the board moved to establish a new Human Services Committee that is a committee of the Select Board. And they appointed the same membership that was on the RTM Human Services Committee to that group, including David Miner, the chair, Sarah Turbo, the vice chair, Robin Morgan, Zach Wiggum, Tom Oxholm, Alyssa Arroyo, and Avery Thompson. And that motion passed by a vote of 5-0 so that that committee can now address any issues that may come up at town meeting regarding the human services spending. Next, Sustainability Coordinator Stephen Dotson and BDCC staff member Danny Delaney updated the board on several efforts around portable solar. They gave a presentation on funding that's coming through Efficiency Vermont to evaluate the town's interest in portable solar program. There was no motion for that item. It was strictly informational. Finally, on March 10th, the board considered the 2026-2027 Select Board Rules of Procedure, and after a number of changes to that, they moved to accept the 2026-2027 Select Board Rules of Procedure as amended, and that passed by a vote of 5-0. The next Select Board meeting is a regular meeting scheduled for Tuesday, March 24th at 6:15 p.m. in the Select Board meeting room at 230 Main Street, and this is what will be on the agenda for that meeting. On consent, there are 4 items. Board will consider approving a 2026 Community Tree Fund mini grant. They will be approving an additional opioid settlement resolution for the 6 defendants' opioid settlement case. They will be considering a No Kings parade and open meeting permit for March 28th. And also on consent, they will be considering the development of an annual town meeting banner for Main Street. And the last item on the consent agenda for March 24th is consideration of basically putting up a banner announcing annual town meeting down on Main Street. Following the consent agenda, the board has a number of items in regular business for Tuesday, March 24th. They're seeking an update on the Brattleboro Festival of Miniatures, and organizer Melanie Kahn will be there to inform the board about how that festival went over the holiday season. Next, the town attorney will be presenting a public records request policy for the board's consideration, and essentially how people can make public records requests of the town. After that, the board will get a monthly budget update through January for fiscal year 2026, this fiscal year, followed by presentation on a economic development initiative that has been emerging called Next Generation Brattleboro. And finally, on March 24th, the board will consider who will present the various motions for annual town meeting. So then a few announcements. Mark your calendars for that open town meeting, which is scheduled for April 11th. At open town meeting, all registered voters who are present can discuss, debate, amend, and vote on the town budget, as well as other binding and non-binding items. To prepare for the meeting, you are welcome to attend an informational session, which is scheduled for April 8th, and that will be held at the Brattleboro Area Middle School Multipurpose Room, and that informational meeting on April 8th starts at 7 p.m. Open town meeting is scheduled to begin at 8:30 a.m. on April 11th, and that will be held at the Brattleboro Union High School Gymnasium with overflow, if needed, I believe, to the multipurpose room in the middle school. You can find helpful documents, including the annual town report and info about the fiscal year 27 budget, by visiting the town's website, brattleboro.gov. Registration is open for summer camp, so visit brattleboro.gov/recreation to sign up online and to learn more about what programs are available for campers this summer. The town's animal control officer will be holding a rabies clinic on Sunday, March 29th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Central Fire Station. Registration is not required for this event. The rabies vaccines will be available at that event for both cats and dogs, and the costs are $15 per animal. This will be a cash-only service. You do not need to be a Brattleboro resident to take part. If you are a Brattleboro resident and you have not yet licensed your dog for 2026, the town clerk's office will be available at this rabies clinic on March 29th. The cost for a license is $21 for dogs that are spayed or neutered and $25 for dogs that are unspayed or unneutered. This service will be cash or check only. And as a reminder, dog licenses are due on April 1st. So that's a recap of what's happening in town government in Brattleboro. Please reach out to me at the town manager's office or email me at townmanager@brattleboro.gov if you have any suggestions for what you'd like to hear on the podcast or if you want to discuss anything further. There's lots of additional information on the town website, brattleboro.gov, about what is discussed at the select board meetings, so please check in there for agendas, reports, and backup materials. Thank you for listening, and check in again soon.